friends, thank you for taking a moment to spend a little bit of time with me. If you appreciate what I do, please go ahead, take a moment to hit like or subscribe, or even maybe hit notify so you can stay up to date with anything that I share, whether it be other crochet tutorials or a mat Pilates class based on the new and full moon, or if you're just looking for channeled messages to help you move towards your highest self and highest purpose. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me sharing some of my arts and crafts with each of you, and some of you did reach out asking if I could teach you how to crochet. So in speaking with those that did reach out, here I am now creating a YouTube tutorial for each of you, which is kind of funny because although I teach Pilates on a regular basis, I never thought I would be teaching crochet, but it's not all that different, just a different type of movement or motor learning, if you will. So there will be more videos to come. I'm still figuring this out as I go along, but I did want to get each of you started with just something, just to allow you to get started on your crochet journey, because there are about 6 foundation stitches. There are more foundation stitches, but once you really get a good handle on these 6 and just creating your slip knot and foundation chain, which is really just the basis of starting a new project, and get comfortable with the rhythm of the movement of the stitch, learning how it feels with the yarn in your hand and just moving through all of it. It just takes some time, so be kind with yourself. A few things I do want to note, just as a heads up to give you a little bit of warning about if this is your first time crocheting, depending on how long you crochet for, please listen to your body, but you may get a little bit of achy or some slight overuse or overwork pain, specifically in your hand, in the meaty palm of your hand, or the sole of it, right where your thumb is, just because of the way you're holding the needle. It just, muscles are contracted in that position for a while, so that can get a little achy. Another part is whichever hand is also holding the needle, you may just get a little achiness in the back of your shoulders, right next to your shoulder blade there, because it's not moving a whole lot. It's more of a posture achiness once you start holding still or staying still. It's like all of a sudden your body's just like, oh, but I want to move now. Or now this spot is telling me we got to do something about that. So just a heads up, please listen to your body. Take breaks as you need to, especially sometimes when you get started and you start to learn the rhythm of the movement or really get into the hang of things. You can get sucked into the crochet loophole or wormhole, if you will. Please take breaks, listen to your body. If you need to just stop for a moment altogether, please do so. Sometimes just shifting my position or switching the way I'm holding the needle, whether I'm doing a knife grip to a pencil grip or a pencil to a knife grip, whichever. But more importantly, please listen to your body. That's all I gotta say about that. So, with that said, let's get started on diving into how does one crochet. And we're going to get started with doing a walkthrough on how to do a slip knot, followed by how to do your foundation chain. And then from there, I'm just going to layer into how to do the remaining stitches. I'm just going to show you the swatch that I create on hand right at this moment, so you'll see everything in real time, as in sometimes I F up my chains or my stitches. So in paying attention to the stitch and where you are in the stitch, sometimes I can kind of navigate my way out of it. Sometimes I just have to start over from the beginning or undo a couple of stitches, but it is what it is. And then each of the other foundation stitches just build off on top of each other. So I'm going to do a row of a single stitch, 1.5, double stitch, and then completing with a row of the third and then 3.5 stitch, just to get you started playing around with yarn and getting comfortable with crochet. you're getting your project started, you need to start with a slip knot, or creating a slip knot with your needle and yarn. For the yarn that we're using, this is the Lion brand ice cream yarn. It's 100% acrylic. I like it because it's nice and soft. The only thing that I've used that is softer or about as soft is alpaca yarn. I like that one a little bit more because the texture is just different. But more importantly, this yarn is manufactured, which is nice because when you use manufactured yarn, it tells you everything that you know, or would need to know for your project. So in terms of crochet, it already tells us that we need an HA, which is a 5mm needle, which I have right here. And this is already the same yarn because I'm using it on for another project that I'm currently working on. You're going to take your yarn, thread it over your finger, and have a piece of the working yarn between the index finger and the middle finger, and then you're going to cross it over the yarn with the piece of the yarn that's attached to the rest of the bundle, and pinch it in between. You want a decent tail because you're going to take that same yarn, bring it back up to your index finger, loop it over and around, and then also pinch onto that at that same point that you're pinching onto with the other thread from before. Then, looking at your index finger, you're going to take the thread in the back, the one that's closest to your knuckle, and you're going to bring it up, over, and around the index finger. Then you're going to go ahead, tighten that up, and you've got your knot. And then you're going to take your crochet needle, put it inside, and then just pull on the working end of the yarn, and it wraps around your needle like so. Then from here, you ultimately wrap the yarn around your finger or fingers in a way that allows you to have enough control and tension as you're working on the yarn. So what that means is, what works best for me is I'll take the working yarn, which is what's attached to the bundle here, and I like to put it over my index finger, through the index and middle finger, like how we did to create the slip knot, under the index, over the ring, under the pinky, and then I loop it around. This one's subjective in terms of if I feel it's too tight, I take off the loop. If I don't have enough control of the yarn, then I'll loop it around. Then hold on to your crochet needle. You have two ways to do so. You can do it as a pencil grip like this, just like how you would writing a pencil, or a knife grip, like how you would holding a knife to cut something. You're going to take your middle finger and thumb and hold on to the knot, so that way you have a base of support, and you're going to take your needle, thread it upward, down, under, and around, and have your hook onto the yarn there, pull it through that loop that you just created, and come back up and around like so. That's how you create your foundation chain. Wow. Well, we could kind of pretend like it's a railroad, but you create your foundation chain. So you're going to take your needle again, bring it down towards that space that's created, or the hole created between your thumb and your index finger. Go back towards, your middle finger. Go back towards your middle finger, up towards the index finger, and then around. Pull through with your needle, and then go like so. And then I like to continue working up each one. So that way it just helps me to get better control and consistency. But you keep on creating your foundation chain, going down, under, and around, and looping the needle through the yarn until you've created the length that you would like to have for your project. So with that said, we're going to continue with this, and I'm now going to break down what or how you would undergo or do a single 1.5 double, 2.5, and triple stitch. So for our single stitch, take your needle, bring it down towards your chain. You're going to bring the needle through the hole, have it go through. I like to use my middle finger as a way to reference which part or next hole to go into. But once you have your needle through the hole, you're then going to bring it towards the yarn. The yarn is going to be in front of your needle, and you're going to push into the yarn, moving closer to your thumb. Bring your needle down towards the space or the hole that's created between your thumb and your middle finger. You're then going to bring the needle back towards your middle finger, pushing it through. Just make sure it gets contact with the yarn. You're going to hold on to your stitch, and then you're going to pull it through that bottom. That way you have two bunny hooks right here, or sorry, bunny loops right here. And then going to take the needle and down towards the space that's created between your middle finger and your thumb. So you're going to go back towards your middle finger, up towards your index finger, going behind the yarn before looping around. Then you're going to pull your needle through, making sure your hook grabs onto the yarn and pull it through both bunny loops. So take your needle, bring it down towards your yarn or your previous row/chain. Needle goes through the loop that you created, and then it's going to come up. Yarn should be in front of your needle. You're going to bring your needle towards the yarn, pushing it towards your thumb, down towards the space that's created between your thumb and your middle finger, back towards the middle finger, up towards the index finger, looping it around or just bringing it away so that way it makes contact with the yarn, and then you're going to thread it through. Sometimes it gets too wrapped up, but again, you're aiming for these two bunny loops, like so. Then you're going to wrap the needle around the yarn again, making sure the hook makes contact with the yarn, pull it through. So again, needle through the chain, make sure you wrap it around the yarn, pull the yarn through, end with your two bunny hoops, and then you're going to wrap the needle around the yarn again, pull it through one more time. So in the chain, pull the yarn through by wrapping the needle around the yarn, and then you're going to go ahead, wrap the needle around the yarn again, pull it through the two bunny hoops. Needle through the chain, wrap the needle or needle makes contact to your yarn and pull it through, get your two bunny hoops, and then pull the yarn through. And you just keep going, doing this until you have finished your first row. Again, trying to make this as consistent as possible, because if it's too tight, it'll start to wind up a little bit, or as you can see here getting started, the space here is a little larger than the spaces here, so that is going to affect the blanket just slightly. Everything's a blanket. Start to become aware of the uniquenesses of your stitch and your style and what feels comfortable to you as you're crocheting or going through your stitches. Our first row in this case of making the swatch, oh, it's a little big of a swatch, but that's okay, is done. We did the single stitch. Now we're going to progress into the 1.5 stitch, at least from my recollection. So from here, we're now going to do another 2 to 3 loops to how we did with the foundation stitch. So you're going to bring your needle, you're going to wrap it around the yarn, and then you're just going to bring your yarn with the needle, make sure they make contact through 1, 2, and then if you want to, you can do a third time. I like to do 2, just because it's still a small stitch, and you're going to flip your work around, so that way it's easier to work with. You're then going to wrap your needle around the yarn first. So you're going to bring it down, back, up, and around. Then you're going to take your needle, and you're not going to put it in the first hole right on the edge, but you're going to go in one more. Mainly because I'm looking to have a straight border for these purposes. However, if you're looking to make your border fade out or sway out a little bit, then you'll want to go into that first one. But for these purposes, you'll skip that first hole because we want a straight border, and you're going to go into the second one. You're then, once you have your needle through the hole, make it or bring it back towards the yarn, and again, hook is going to make contact with the yarn, so that way you pull it through the hole, making what looks like or appears to be 3-esque bunny hoops-ish, give or take. Then take your needle, wrap it around the yarn again, move the needle in a way so that way the hook makes contact with your yarn, and you're going to slide it through all 3 hooks. That is your 1.5 stitch. So again, you're going to wrap the needle around the yarn, bring it down towards your project, thread it through that foundation chain or that last row that you have, and then you're going to bring your hook towards your yarn. You're going to pull the hook towards your foundation chain so that way it goes through, bringing the yarn with it to create those 3 bunny loop or loops around your needle. Then wrap the needle around the yarn again and move the hook so that way it makes contact with the yarn. Pull it through all 3 holes that were created or those loops that were created, and then you're left with 1 loop on top. So wrap the needle around the yarn, bring it down towards your foundation chain or that chain that you have from the last row that you created. Needle is going to go through that hole there. You're going to bring your needle up towards the yarn. Hook is going to meet the yarn. You're going to pull it through to create that loop there, and then you're going to wrap the needle around the yarn 1 more time. Pull it through all 3 loops that were created to complete the stitch. Wrap the needle around the yarn, bring the needle through that stitch that was created from the previous row. You're going to bring your needle towards your yarn, pull the yarn through the stitch from the previous row to create your 3 bunny loops, and then you're going to bring the needle around the yarn and make sure it gets contact with that hook, and then you're going to pull it through all 3. We're going to keep going doing this, now progressing into a 1.5 stitch from the single stitch that we did before. You're just going to see it's a little bigger, it's a little puffier. Still keep it as consistent as you can because you want the spacing to be consistent. Also, what I notice is common for me sometimes is I'll go through 2 holes instead of all 3. Just be patient and slow with yourself. And if you need to go through 2 and then 1, that's fine. when finishing your row, make sure you go all the way towards that last knot or border that you created as you create the depth or the length of your project, because again, it's going to help you to keep a straight border. It also reduces your risk of limiting the amount of stitches that you have. You want to keep that the same. Ideally, you don't want to add any more or any less, and you don't want to make it smaller or larger. But now, from here, so we did our single stitch, we did our 1.5 stitch, now we're going to do our double stitch. So, going back to the stitch created in our foundation chain, this time we're going to do 3 loops going through. So, you're going to wrap your needle around, make sure it makes contact with the hook, pull it through 1, have your new loop. Rinse and repeat, do it again, wrap the needle around, make sure it makes contact with the yarn, pull it through for 2, and then wrap it around in the needle, make sure it makes contact with the hook, pull it through again, you got 3. And then again, so we have a straight border, we're going to skip that first hole or stitch next to where our border is, and we're going to go to that second one in. However, we're going to start the same way we did for that 1.5 stitch. So you're going to wrap your needle around the yarn first, go into the second hole in from the edge of your project, push your needle through that hole, and then you're going to make the hook get contact with the yarn, pull it through to create what looks like your 1.5 stitch again. However, this time, instead of going through all 3, you're only going to go through the first 2 holes. So you're going to wrap your needle around the yarn, make sure it makes contact with the hook, pull it through, and have your 2 bunny hooks left on top. Then you're going to do the same thing. Needle goes around the yarn, make sure it makes contact with the hook, pull it through, you're left with 1, and that is your double stitch. So start like how you would in your 1.5, wrap the needle around, you're going to bring the needle down towards your foundation chain or previous row stitch, push the needle through, bring the hook towards the yarn, pull it through, have your 3 loops there, wrap the needle around the yarn, make sure it makes contact with the hook, pull it through only 2 of the loops this time. You want to be left with 2 loops on top that's still left on your needle. Wrap your needle around the yarn again, make sure it gets in contact with the hook there, and then you're going to pull it through, finishing that double stitch. Wrap the needle around the yarn, bring it down towards that foundation layer, pull the needle through that previous stitch, bring your hook towards the yarn to pull it through, make sure you have your 3 loops there. Then take your needle, wrap it around the yarn again, only push it through 2 of the loops. I like to tighten it a little bit, you might feel a little differently, but then you're going to go ahead, wrap your needle around the yarn again, have your hook get in contact with the yarn again, and pull it through. You're going to keep doing this, or keep working on your double stitch until you complete the row. And again, you've got those 3 loops because now this is a larger stitch. It requires more space. You're going to need more of a border in order to accommodate for that extra space. You just want to make sure your stitches are as consistent as possible. Whatever design or stitch you decide to do for your project, that's completely up to you because you are the boss of this project, as in you are the creator. So whatever you say goes. But I just want to give you an idea of some basic stitches just to get you started on your journey before you explore some other designs or avenues.
also on our 4th row. So this is usually when I like to start doing a spot check for my borders in terms of, are they still straight? Are there any adjustments that need to be made? Because now would be the time to make those adjustments before you get too deep into your project and correct anything that needs to be corrected.
once again, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on essentially the foundations of crochet, the essentials that you need to get started in terms of how do you make a slip knot, your foundation chain, and just the basic chains to create essentially any project you want. I hope this helps you to get started on your crochet journey and you found this information helpful and useful. Again, if you like what I do, what you see, and you want me to continue doing what I do, whether it be more crochet tutorials, mat Pilates, or shenanigans, really, I feel like whatever I put on this account is whatever I feel called to share with you that my guides are telling me to intuitively post right now. So really, whatever you like, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know you appreciate what it is that I'm putting. Ultimately, I see this channel as a way of sharing myself with you, with each of you that you just care to know about. So with that said, thank you again, and where focus goes, energy flows. So I will see you later. Bye!